Okay, I'd like to call this meeting to order of the Investments in Technology Improvement Modernization Projects Oversight Board Committee. First thing we will do is the roll call.
Senator Armstrong. Senator Wise.
Present.
Representative All. Here. Representative Tate. Co-Chair Williams.
Here.
Chair Hodgson.
Here. Okay, I believe we do have a quorum, and we have two items of business to vote on, and that's the minutes from the September 11th meeting. Entertain a motion to approve those.
Motion.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? Aye. Minutes stand approved. And now the minutes from October 9th. You get a motion for approval on those?
Motion.
Second? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you much. Thank you to staff for setting all this up and keeping us straight here. We've got a couple of pretty high-tech presentations here. I hope the committee members are as high-tech as the presentations we've got to see. But first one is election reporting transparency technology. If you guys would come on up, we've got Adam Friedman and John Fleisch. If y'all come up to the witness stand. This is a technology that we've seen at a conference that some municipalities and states have been adopting to give transparency to the election process. And I think we're going to try to use a combination of slides and online as well as Zoom call for this presentation. So Adam, you are in the driver's seat. Just press the green button so we can hear you. Introduce yourself for the record, and you may proceed.
Very good. Thank you, Representative Hodgson. Thank you, members of the committee, for having us. My name is Adam Friedman. I'm the founder and CEO of Severa. We bring public software to life, public data to life. I'm joined with my colleague, John Fleisch, solutions architect with Severa, also has a deep policy background. We'd like to get on a Zoom call, if that's okay, because we do have the elections administrator of Tarrant County, Texas, who would like to Zoom in.
Which is my hometown, by the way. So.
Very good. So I presume that I should click on the Zoom icon here. Does that sound right?
If they have logged on, they should be over there in that 129 laptop, I think.
Okay, so let's... Oh, just say I'm in a meeting.
See
Okay,
129
good.
laptop.
Screen share meeting controls.
Does it need to click?
Okay, here we go.
Okay.
So we have participants here. I'm not sure if I should... Let's stop the share for the time being and then see. Okay, it looks like we're joined by Tarrant County. I see Troy Harvard here, who is the Deputy Election Administrator in Tarrant County. Troy, would you like to say hello?
Hi, how are you doing? Clint was using the original link, so I just told him you need to change links, use the new link.
Excellent. Okay, so he should be joining us shortly. So while we're waiting for Clint, I will begin my own remarks, and then we'll kind of get back to you two just after, if that sounds okay. And so I'll revert to the screen share, and we will share this. Actually, let's do the entire screen. Okay, brilliant. So this is just a little bit of background in our company. Our company decided to solve a few key problems, mostly around data access and availability in the public sector. As we know, we're in a season where there has been a lot of distrust in the elections administration all across the country, across the board. There's been a movement around a clamor for more public data, more data around elections, more data around ballots and cast vote record accessibility. It's always been galling to me that arguably one of the most important public records in our democracy, the proof that the person who won the election deserved to win and deserves to rule over the rest of us, that record in most states is not a public record. It seems to be a most poetic irony that is the case in in a government and a society where we elevate populism and we elevate the power of the people to have that basic oversight and accountability over those temporary terms of representation. That's always bothered me. Fortunately, we're of an era where technology is so accessible, affordable, and attainable that no excuse remains not to provide that basic oversight, that basic access to the ballot, not only once it's cast, but once it's in the ballot box and it's countable, to be available for every human being from the comfort and convenience of their home to take a look at those records and to ensure that the count is exactly what's expected, that all of the records, all of those ballots and cast vote records are there and can be accessed and reviewed by any third party to audit to ensure that they're consistent and accurate. Savera is the inventor of the ballot verifier. The ballot verifier is just that solution. The ballot verifier is an extension of our flagship product called Election Stats. Election Stats is born out of my own frustration in trying to get an accessible form of historical election results reports that are queryable, that are searchable, that are analyzable, so that I could review trends in elections. In our home state of Massachusetts, we're based in Cambridge, Massachusetts, I was in the middle of looking at kind of doing a research study, analysis of elections where the winner does not win more than 50% of the vote, to understand what are the elections in crowded fields or 3 or 4 candidate races where the winner gets less than 50% of the vote. They don't have a majority. In some cases, there was a congressional primary where there were 9 candidates and the winner won that primary with 19% of the vote. Now, Massachusetts is a very blue state. It's a Democratic primary. So if you're winning a Democratic primary, you're going to basically be winning the general and you're going to be governing. So it just so happened that 81% of voters did not vote for that candidate, yet that candidate went forward. So that spurred my desire to look at the elections, and I found not a searchable experience, not even a dynamic experience on a website, but static documents, tables of numbers, static reports, PDFs, paper, and it made it very, very difficult to do a coherent analysis to see historically to analyze this problem. And that's just one research question of many. So our election stats product is a solution to ensure that that data is fully liberated, fully searchable by the public. And we, in the last couple of years, we expanded upon that to create the ballot verifier. And I'm going to show you an example in the location that we launched the ballot verifier. We were approached by, actually, let me just search for it here. So anyone can access this right now. If you go to Google and you just search ballot verifier Idaho, ballot verifier Ada County, which is the largest county in Idaho, we were approached by the county with a problem. They said, we've been getting a lot of skepticism and people coming to us asking for our cast vote records and our ballots, our ballot images. Do you have a solution for us? We set out the next year crafting that solution based on our Savera's election stats technology to create this product. This product allows any user to search back through any election, select an election, and then get a coherent, searchable experience where they can slice and dice and search through the past contests of every election event they want to. They can filter these results by office. They can filter them by district. They can filter them by any candidate who has run in the history of the jurisdiction. They can filter by the full text search of ballot questions. They can search even through 100 years if the jurisdiction loads that much data, which we do have some customers that have that. They can search through full text of the ballot question. But the real power here is when the user is doing their search, they also get what we call the glass box. We like to say that the ballot verifier turns a black box into a glass box. So every contest in one search also comes with the corresponding ballots that were actually cast by actual voters for every contest in that user's query on the website. When the user clicks on a ballot in the gallery, they now have the power to verify that the human markings from the voter correspond accurately to what's called the cast vote record, which is the record that the precinct scanner or the central tabulation machine produced, which verifies that they read the intended marking of the voter. And so you see here, as an example, we have Matt Losby for U.S. Rep District 1 corresponding to the cast vote record readout. Now, this particular example is with the HART voting system, but there are two other major voting systems in the U.S. It's ES&S and Dominion. The ballot verifier has adapters for all three voting vendors, and we're also working on that for Clear Ballot, which is a not as large, but also an emerging newer voting system vendor that does some very exciting work in their own right in this space. So as the user is filtering down these results, let's say I want to, add in another event. Got a couple events here. You'll see that the cast vote record number increased accordingly. But let's filter it down. Let's just look for mayor. And so now we're winnowing down our results to just a few contests for mayor. You see the cast vote record number is smaller. Let's look at Boise and Eagle. And you'll see that changes and the ballots change, no matter the ballot style, no matter what precinct that voter's in. Now, if I want to take a particular filter and lens and look at just one precinct, I have the ability to do that. Say, hey, I'm wondering about precinct 1403. Now I'm getting partial results just through that precinct, and then I'm getting just the ballots that were cast in that precinct. I can also analyze this by the vote method or vote type. So I say, I only want to look at the absentee ballots that came through. So now I'm filtering by the absentee ballots. Now, when we go to a detailed view of a contest, the user has the power to see these granular results down to the vote type level. And also every ballot cast for that where that contest appeared. The user can also download a results CSV of all of the precinct level data and download a zip file that's filled with the artifacts, the ballot images, and their corresponding cast vote records. We also ensure that every single contest is linked to the official report that was published and produced at the time of that election to further corroborate the numbers on the website meet the official numbers that were published then. The user also has the ability to verify at a more macro level, which is that when Severa receives the cast vote records from the jurisdiction, we do our own live tabulation, and then our proofreaders will match those results against the official report and provide the verification to the user that everything you're seeing in the system that came through from those original ballot scans and CVRs continue to match the official published report. So that way, through the verified shield in the contest blocks and through the one-to-one pairwise comparisons, users have the ability to verify at that macro and that atomic micro level. So we believe that this should be the new standard for transparency in elections across the country, and we're working very hard to get this spread around the country. We were in talks with a few states that are interested in doing this statewide, including Colorado, some folks in Arizona, some folks in Texas. And speaking of Texas, I want to highlight and introduce a couple of gentlemen who were part of the purchasing and utilization of this in Tarrant County, Texas. And I'll bring up their website in a moment, but I want to stop the screen share to just introduce them formally. We have Clint Ludwig, who is the election administrator of Tarrant County, Texas, and Troy Howard, the deputy administrator of elections in Tarrant County, Texas. So I want to introduce them and welcome them to share their remarks while I bring us back up to showing Tarrant County's website. So Clint and Troy.
Good morning. And Adam, I appreciate you inviting us to come here and speak, and I appreciate the opportunity to give our experiences. For those of you that aren't familiar with Tarrant County, we are the third largest county in the state of Texas. We have right at 1.3 million registered voters just within our jurisdiction. So we are a large county with a large population, a lot of voters. I don't know if all the news made it to you there or not, but we were considered to be one of the battleground counties across the nation due to our population size and how the voting went in 2020. So we in this office received an extreme amount of scrutiny. We had many individuals that came in and would request to view the actual paper ballots, and we would make those available, and they would sit in our office for weeks and weeks and go through every single paper ballot, looking to verify, making sure everything matched. And this was for multiple elections, not just the presidential election. So we've been experiencing a very, very high level of scrutiny now for 4 years. And that scrutiny is what actually caused us to look for and fortunately stumble across a ballot verifier, because it's not a widely known product, and we got very lucky in being able to find it and rolling this product out. We immediately received a tremendous amount of praise from the individuals that we refer to as our elections enthusiasts, who want to get in the details, that want to see this type of information, who want to be able to peer into the glass box that Adam has created, because they do view it as a black box, and it has been extremely successful. I've greatly appreciated the partnership, and as we are winding out of this presidential election, we are very excited to get this finished and get those results posted and allow the public to sit at home and view and see that our elections department did do a great job. Their vote did count, and their election was accurate. So with that, I'll open it up to Troy to see if I missed anything. He's great at catching anything I miss. And then I guess some other unique things about our office. Both Troy and I are United States Marines. I served 20 years. He served, I believe, 28, and was a warrant officer. My background was in the intelligence field. I did signals intelligence and then counter intel and human intelligence. So the security and safety of our operation is very, very important to both of us. And how we do that, we have years of extensive backgrounds. And ballot verifier is just another tool in our toolbox that we're able to use that makes us more transparent to the public.
Thank you, Clint. And thank you, Adam. Clint is exactly right. I have to tell you that initially I was a little less enthusiastic about the product when we first started listening to Adam's pitch. But
Incoming voice call from Don.
But once Adam started talking about ballot verifier, Clint, I think everyone that was on the call saw my ears perk up. And part of the reason for that is one of my additional duties that I have to do is FOIAs. So I have to answer all the public information requests. I've been responsible for that. And we've had so many of them that we were actually required to, I say required, we had to create an additional position to be able to keep up with the workload. It became my full-time job, and many of the requests were centered around ballots and looking at the ballots and the images, and it just became overwhelming. So this product was really a godsend for us. And to the extent that we recently had in our primary elections in Texas, we hold our primary elections in March of even numbered years. And in our primary election for this year, we had a recount that was requested for a constable race, which was very close. And there was a lot of contention around it. But the fact that we were able to use ballot verifier and put the images of the ballots out there along with the cast vote records that people could match up to the results saved us a lot of headaches. That manual recount that was conducted was, of course, anything that's done with humans is prone to human error. That's why it's called human error. So there were some mistakes that were made in the hand counts, but the fact that we had this product that we could fall back on played very heavily in the results ultimately, that we were able to prove that the original results were in fact the official results, and the judge upheld that. So we've been very fortunate and pleased to have Adam and his team work with us. We've had a lot of work that we put into um, getting the information to them, and they've been extremely good at working with us, even to the extent of making some slight modifications on things that, we said, well, what about happy to glad? What about putting, instead of putting the search button here, what about putting it over there? What about being able to do this? And to the extent that they could do that, they have done a fantastic job of and doing what we requested in order to make the product, in our humble opinion, a better product, at least for us.
Thank you very much. I'll show Tarrant County briefly, and Clinton Troy. If you have anything to add, feel free. Otherwise, no problem. Thank you for your remarks on that. It's been a great pleasure working with you two. And maybe reactions from any of the election, some of your, I guess, fan club, if you will, folks who are more skeptical of the goings on in Tarrant County. I don't know if you've had any outreach to those folks.
Oh, yes, we have. Of course, they seem to watch what we're doing very, very closely, and so they were the first ones to really take a look at it. And we have a couple that specifically CPA types, very, very into the data, and they were very, very excited about this tool, and they really liked it because it does give them a level of granularity that they're more accustomed to and used to, that we just weren't able to provide before. Our results and the things that we post were very static. That's part of the reason I wanted to change it, because it was not user friendly. You couldn't break it down to this level of detail, sort and search and do all these things. So it has definitely been very well received by the public here and our enthusiasts.
Excellent, thank you. I want to touch on a concern that folks have, which is our number one bit of concern, maybe skepticism, which is, does revealing all of these ballots pose a risk for voter privacy? Getting some recognition from the committee. There are solutions. In our conversations with Christina Adkins, who is the Director of Elections under the Secretary of State of Texas, she believes that we can have both. We can have maximum transparency and maximum protection of voter privacy at the same time. We agree. The technology allows us, if we're careful, to architect a system that ensures that we break any and all potential links that could crop up between the voter registration database of a state, any sort of identifier on a ballot, on a physical ballot itself. The folks that are working on this, including folks at Severa and also election administrators who are our customers and our partners, are passionate about this aspect of ensuring this product maintains those protections. So I'm going to show you one example of how we're doing that. One of the major concerns in any election, and even before Ballot Verifier came on the scene, in jurisdictions that produce precinct level results reports, which are commonly demanded by everyone in the public, including campaigns, analysts, and anyone involved in politics, is even precinct level reports could reveal voter identity. If there's a precinct that has one or two ballots cast, someone could look at the voter file and say that voter turned out in that precinct for that election. That's the only voter that turned out, and I know exactly how they voted. That already exists. That risk is out there. That exists all across the country. That cat is out of the bag. So Ballot Verifier does not exacerbate that. That's already what it is. But however, with Ballot Verifier, folks have the option of turning on what's called voter privacy masking. And I'm showing you this on the live Ada County site, which is a very, very small, Constitution Party primary. It's a third party. So there's a very small number of people turning out, 57 voters for a congressional primary. This disclaimer indicates that there are precincts in which there are so few ballots that there is a risk that those voters could be identified. In those cases, if they hit that threshold, which the configurable threshold that they set was 1 ballot, but you could flip a switch and set this threshold to 5 ballots or 10 ballots or 20 ballots, as some states even have in statutory law, to mask those small precincts. We will mask not only the numbers, but in the ballot box or the glass box here, we will mask those corresponding ballot images and cast vote records. So as a user, if I'm going through and doing my comparisons and I'm looking at the cast vote record along with the image and I'm paging through and I come to a ballot from one of those masked precincts, they are hidden. They're not web accessible in any way, shape, or form. And in fact, Savera deletes these records from our servers so that there's no chance of some sort of breach that would expose PII, personally identifiable information, or information that could be used and set against another data source, such as the voter registration file, to discern who those voters are. So we think that's a very effective way to ensure that we handle those cases. We would also recommend that lawmakers consider making ballot doxing a felony, similar to existing voter suppression laws that are on the books across the country, where you'll get into trouble if you deceive voters and say, hey, voting day has changed. You have a robocall campaign that's trying to move voters you don't like away from voting. Those are all punishable. They serve as an important deterrent effect. We think that trying to go through a system like this and being able to expose John Smith's ballot is over here, this is how they voted, should also be seen as a form of voter suppression that would deter voters from feeling that they can comfortably cast their ballot without being obviously exposed to the world. So we'd recommend that folks look into that change to the law.
Adam, I'm going to tell you we're running up on time here, and I want to give the committee members a chance to ask some questions.
Certainly.
You've answered probably the number one question was how can we preserve the identity of these voters. The other question is, and I think I know the answer, you're not going off the county's live records here, so there's no public records that are being impacted by your system. This is a copy of the data, is that correct?
That's correct. The jurisdiction always retains the original copy, both paper and digital, of the ballots and the cast vote records.
Okay. Very good. Any other committee members? Go ahead.
Yeah.
Senator Williams.
Okay. Thank you very much. How do we know that the data in your very separate system matches the ballot that's sitting in that little box, I guess, maybe locked up in the clerk's office?
So once you make a digital copy of something, there is a technique called hash validation. At the time of the scan, most voting system vendors will create a digital signature of that scan of that voter's ballot. Now, we haven't implemented this yet, but it's on the roadmap to do, but it requires a little more cooperation from the voting system vendors in that they pass over their digital signature with their files and that we retain, and then any user or any voter could take that digital signature and ask the county and compare those in a random sample to the county to the digital signatures that they possess to ensure that that is kind of the manifest that passes with these records, that those continue to match. If any, yeah.
So does Tarrant County make those digital signatures readily available to the public, or what process do they go through? If I'm going to have one from you, and then I'm going to get the other one from the county pursue, how does that work? Is that readily available from the county?
So I can't speak for them. We actually haven't crossed that bridge yet. I don't know if Clint has talked to Hart about that, about the availability of a hash or digital signature of the scans that you're getting in Hart. Clint, I don't know if you're still tuned in.
I'm still here and listening, and that's not a conversation that we've actually opened up yet. And that's actually a great concern. and that was brought up, what we had happen for us, I guess, fortunately or unfortunately, very early on, when Troy mentioned that there was the hand recount of that constable race, what ended up happening is the people that were hand counting ended up missing about 50 some ballots. Where that created a problem with ballot verifier is because we had all of the ballot images, the results we posted did not match the number of ballots that we were displaying because the results of the hand count became the official result. And so it showed fewer ballots than what was actually being displayed by Severa. And so we had to put in disclaimers. And unfortunately, that ended up going to court. The candidates filed a lawsuit, and the judge overturned the hand count, and everything went back to the actual original results, so we could get rid of the disclaimer and all our numbers match. But that immediately from the gate showed the public that what we had there was accurate down to the individual ballot.
Great. And so HARP was your machine. So they have essentially a checksum, and the checksums were checksumming individual ballots, but I presume we could go to the next level and sort of verify that nothing has been changed, that we got them all to. Is that something that's possible? Or how does HARP verify? How did you miss the 50, I guess, and how does HARP verify that? Is there any verifications?
With all of the technology and everything that we have available, there's a on these ballots, and I don't know if you can see there on the images, there's a unique identifier that's generated in the HART system for every single ballot. And so that unique identifier is able to narrow down that ballot to the location that it was, to the scanner that cast it, that we can then take it to that location, and I can go pull the bag of ballots from that location, and I can find that individual paper ballot, and they match up. How we were able to identify that the hand count missed is my numbers and the reports that we had from HART said there are this many ballots from this location there, and the people counting by hand didn't find that. Then with the contest, the judge actually made us go back and redo the entire election a third time. And we were able to produce every single ballot and every single image because we can track every ballot by that unique identifier.
Very good.
Can I add one more thing to that?
Sure.
There are movements to convert to hand count in a lot of cases, and what we've experienced from our conversations with election administrators around the country is that hand counts are actually typically highly inaccurate compared to the machine counts from original elections. And we have no dog in that fight whatsoever. We're just trying to pass on what seems like logistically, what's going to be optimal or not. And that's kind of what and that's why there was a discrepancy, is because ballots get stuck together and then that's it. But the machine actually loyally got each one.
So here in Kentucky, we just implemented a law that has a random hand recount on one machine in every county. So we'll be able to keep tabs on the relationship between machine count and human count. And I think humans are learning from the experience, and we'll be able to identify if a machine has been tampered with. I think that's the primary goal there. It's really not machine error; it's machine tampering that we're trying to detect. Representative All has a question.
Thanks, Chairman. I got just a lot of little bitty questions. I'll try to be real quick here.
Okay.
You said you were in talks with Colorado and talks with a whole bunch of other states. We've got a county level. Are you all at the state level in any states, or just in talks with a bunch of people?
So with ballot verifier itself, we are not implemented at the state level. We're implemented at the state level with election stats, which is our historical election results research tool. That is in 10 U.S. states around the country.
Okay. And what is the cost?
So the cost, of course, depends on a lot of factors. It depends on, obviously, size of the jurisdiction.
Let's say statewide, a state with, 1.6 million voters.
Yeah, so it could range from $500,000 to $1.5 million.
So it's roughly $1 per voter-ish.
Yeah, I guess you could call it that.
Okay. And you said the information is automatically deleted from your server, I guess the glass cast ballot thing. So there is if I'm understanding that correctly, there is a point in time in your system, in your server, that does have the actual identifier of the person, the voter, and how they voted, but then you delete it from your server?
So no, that's not
okay,
accurate.
Can you describe that a little bit more in-depthly there?
Certainly. So we were, we take the risks of this very, very seriously. We're not glib about that. I actually took initiative and kind of really urged Ada County to institute the voter privacy masking. Savera kind of initiated that. What I was describing was, again, the problem of precinct level election results reporting. When you're reporting down at the precinct level, and you have jurisdictions across the country that have very rural areas or low turnout areas, where you have 1 or 2 or 3 people turning out in a precinct for one election, if one were to do a lot of investigation and connect that record of vote result to the central voter database or some other data source, it's possible to stitch those together to then determine who the voter is.
Yeah, I understand
Okay.
that if there's only one person in the precinct, or even 2 or 3, I get that. But I'm saying
So
I'm more
Savera-
interested in what exactly you're deleting
Yes.
from
So-
your server.
So Savera in no way, shape, or form has any of the voter registration side of anything. Along
Right.
with
I'm
this.
not worried
Okay.
about voter registration.
Okay,
I'm
great.
worried about
So when I said
the
we
ballot.
delete from our servers, I was showing you, I was showing the voter privacy masking feature, and those items that are masked are also items that we will remove in order to reduce the risk that anybody could use anything on our systems to correlate with the voter registration side anywhere else.
so.
Adam,
Yeah.
if I jump here real quick,
Sure.
Sid?
Yeah.
So Ada County is doing a little bit different than we are here in Tarrant County, because the actual physical ballot, we in the Texas Constitution, you were guaranteed an anonymous ballot. So our physical ballots have no personal identifiable information on them. So we don't pass anything to Savera that would allow you to identify the person. None of that information exists on the ballot image or the cast vote record. What it is, and I'm a Marine, so I have to keep things simple. It's the Finding Nemo concept, right? If you put him in a small fishbowl, he's easy to find, and that's what happens with these precincts. Is you put people in small fishbowls, whether it's absentee ballots or just their precinct, and it makes it easier to find if you have the other data from other reports, election day reports, who showed up to vote from what precincts. Where Tarrant County is different, instead of redacting the ballot, because I did not want to touch the votes whatsoever. I wanted to be 100% transparent in the ballots and the votes. So what we chose to do is we are redacting our reporting. So what happens on our side is you go and you pull up that ballot and you see one person from precinct 1001 voted. So then you go to the reports and you want to pull who voted from that precinct. We've redacted the person's identifiable information from that precinct. So you just know a human being from that precinct voted, but you have no way of tying it to the person, and you still will get to see all the results and all the ballots.
Yeah,
Does
I
that
mean,
help?
kind of. So I understand. I'm not worried about one person, one precinct. That's pretty self-explanatory. Everybody can do math. Like if there's one election in one precinct, you can get that from the clerk's office, who got that one vote and who one person voted was. That's already out there. We can figure that out today. What I'm more interested in is how the number or the cast system, the identifier that you all use in your system that ties back to the physical, like let's say a precinct with 1,000 votes. Do they have a cast number 1 through 1,000 and they're sitting in the clerk's office with that same identifier or number? How does the tying in work, and what is deleted from your server that keeps it secure? That's what I'm trying to get at. What keeps it from being unhackable or whatever, to where we can not figure out exactly 1-1? I get it.
Yeah.
I'm more interested in 1,000 where who voted for who.
Yeah. In terms of a large number, a larger fishbowl, to use Clint's analogy, it would be virtually impossible to determine, which of the 1,000 is which voter in the voter file corresponding to that location. There's just no way. The cast vote record data and the ballots themselves just have no link to the voters that actually cast them. There's nothing. There's no identifier that you could trace back that would give you any one-to-one understanding. All you know is the precinct and maybe the vote channel or the vote type, the vote method, which might reduce 1,000 to a couple hundred. And out of a couple hundred, it's still impossible.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. Thank
I'm
you.
going to ask if you guys could maybe hang around till the end of the meeting. We may have some people with some additional questions, but I'm watching the clock here, and I know Senator Williams has one final question here, and then we're going to move on to our next presentation.
My pet peeve, is your code transparent and that it is open source so it'd be viewable by everybody so we could look at it and view it, much like SSL is on the web? I know it.
I sympathize with that sentiment. Being in the tech space for quite a while, we use a lot of open source tools. We use Linux-based. We don't use Oracle proprietary databases. We don't use Windows-based technologies. We use open source Linux. We use Postgres, SQL, some MySQL databases. We are a for-profit vendor, so for that reason, we don't just open source our code.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Tarrant County, does HARP make their source code available to you for a review?
No, they do not.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. And just to correct the record, the voting vendor, just for everyone to be aware, is HART, H-A-R-T, HART Voting
Right.
Systems. Yeah, one of the big three.
In Kentucky, our heart is serviced by HARP. So
Oh,
it's a little
geez, that would explain the
You have to
discrepancy.
enunciate very carefully. So,
Okay.
fascinating presentation. Thank you guys very much. I'm sure we're going to probably have an after party here with a few more questions if anybody wants to get deeper into the tech. But we're going to move on right now to our pending and legacy projects with Ruth Day, Chief Information Officer, and Jim Barnhart, Deputy Information Officer, and Robert Long, General Counsel.
Okay. Should I keep the Zoom open or close it?
Does anybody else need Zoom for their presentation today? Okay.
Okay.
Tarrant County guys, thank you very much for being with us.
Thanks, Clint.
Yes, thank you.
Great. Thank you. We appreciate it. Have a wonderful day.
Okay. Get you guys going here.
Okay, Ruth, at least you have Jim Barnhart with you so he can master the technology here. So.
Are we having a basketball game?
Yeah. Yeah, if y'all would just please, we know who you are, but please introduce yourself for the record. You may proceed.
Good morning. My name is Ruth Day, and I'm the Executive Director of the Commonwealth Office of Technology and the Chief Information Officer.
Jim Barnhart, I'm the Deputy CIO, Commonwealth Office of Technology.
I'm Robert Long. I'm the General Counsel for the Finance and Administration Cabinet.
Since we were here last, we provided a list of the pending projects, the capital IT projects, with the additional information that you had requested in June. And with that, we have taken your, I want to say the reference was to data points, that was a list of particular pieces of data that you would look to have in future requests. And our plan at this point is to add that in to what we gather in the capital IT projects planning process. I think there were some different elements, but I don't think we'll have a problem with adding that in. Now, since we last were here, our understanding is that there is a pending change that LRC is looking at relative to the capital IT projects process. So we are kind of awaiting that, but meanwhile, we're just going to continue with the process that we had in place before and add the information that you guys have requested, this board has requested.
Yeah, I appreciate that spreadsheet. Spent some time going through that. A lot of good detailed information there. We may need a definition key for those of us that are not accountants. You know, what's the difference in encumbrance and expenditure and unobligated allocation, that sort of thing.
Very good point.
A
Yes,
little
sir.
definition sheet on that would be great for the non-CPAs in the group.
Will do.
Okay, thank you.
Otherwise, the other project that we're working on, and again, thanks to your guidance at the last meeting, we feel like we're really making progress on capturing with the legacy applications and systems and applications. We have had pretty good progress with gathering the direct annual cost, and also with the idea of the matrix of the replacement of modernization of those legacy systems. So we're making good progress there, and we think we will have something to you before your next meeting. that's where we are with.
Okay, outstanding.
that
Great,
component.
great progress, and I appreciate the granularity of the data here, and hopefully we'll be able to make some better decisions. So,
Very good.
thank you. And anything else from you guys? Is that it?
That's all we have today.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your data and your testimony. Next up is school security technology. We have Brent Cobb from Centagix. Did I say that right? Centagix? Centagix, okay. We saw saw a little demo here in the Capitol recently of this product, and of course school safety is something that's on everyone's mind, and potential expenditures here by school systems all over Kentucky. So we just wanted to get a good look at this technology for the record. So if you guys would introduce yourselves for the record, and you may proceed. Press your green button.
Oh, the green button.
Yeah.
Will Fullerton. I lead the government affairs team at Centagix. Unfortunately, our CEO, Brent Cobb, couldn't make it today. There was a death in the family over the weekend. And with me.
Hi, my name is Dean Olds with Centagix, and I lead their innovation.
And we have a deck. I'm not sure how to pull it up down here. There it is.
Calling Jim Barnhart. No, different branch of government. Okay, so,
But while we get that up, okay.
Oh, you see.
Oh, then that's good enough. Then we can go by that. A lot of that is for resource. We want to thank you all for your time, Senator Wise, for your leadership on school safety policy. That is most of my work, is in state capitals and at the federal level as well, focusing on work with legislatures as well as departments of education in establishing standard requirements, et cetera. My background, I was chief of staff at the Texas Education Agency. Actually, Mr. Chairman, I grew up in Corsicana, Texas, in Navarre County, so not too far from the Fort Worth area. But we do, outside of K-12, we are in state capitals, government buildings at the state and local level, hospitals, higher ed institutions. The majority of our customers and our business is K-12. We are a company that was founded in 2019, following the after action report from Marjorie Stoneman Douglas. I work at the state level to pass things like Alyssa's Law, Representative All, that kind of, we work in tandem with Alyssa's mom, Lori Al-Hadef, who's also the chair of Broward County School System on the Board of Trustees. And with that, I'm going to really just hand it over to Dean to kind of walk through how and why the technology works. Feel free to jump in with questions, and we'll hand it over there.
Thank you, Will. And you are seeing it full screen right now on your side, or? Okay. So obviously, we are in Kentucky. We do have districts in Kentucky. I did want to talk a little bit because this has been an evolution. As we go through, there's things we learn. Right? We have now been over 600,000 people wear this badge, and I'll explain a little bit more about it. And there's a lot we've learned over the last 6 years. But more importantly, how do we change the technology to be easier to adopt? Because we all know there's a lot of great technologies out there, but if they're not able to be adopted fast enough or in a cost-effective way, they'll never be accepted or adopted in those schools. So as we went through the evolution side of it, when we went to school, we all had buttons, right? There was buttons on the walls. There might have been a phone in the classroom. Those things exist, and we're not trying to replace those things, but there are problems with those. You might not be able to get to that button on the wall. Right? You might be using your phone and calling the front office and no one is answering. And you might have something going on in that classroom, either a behavior incident that is now threatening other students in the classroom. It might be a medical issue where seconds matter and you need to get a response. So what we did is said, we have to do this better. We can't be a phone app. We can't be something that we require teachers or other staff members to download on personal devices, which becomes issues for privacy. We couldn't do it because sometimes in emergency, you can't get to your phone, right? You can't unlock it. You can't remember a name of an app. So we had to look at this a little differently than being a phone app for some way for teachers to call for help. And what we did is we came out with the badge. And this is a simple, easy to use badge that every staff member in a district would wear. And as Will said, this goes beyond school districts. We now see it in healthcare because the simple thing we're trying to solve is push button help comes. If you need support, we want to make sure it gets to you as quickly as possible. So that badge came out, but then something happened, and we all recall Parkland and the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas of 2018. Everything up to that point, I'm just going to switch here.
There it is.
Everything up to this point was about getting help there faster. How can we let someone know that someone needs help and get them to that location? And that's very important. But what we realized when we looked at a lot of the events is that it is more important even to how do we let everyone else in the building know? And as simple as a fire alarm sounds like, a lot of the solutions in place before us were kind of like if you look at the fire system and say, if there's a fire in this building, we all know what to do, right? Someone's going to pull that alarm, and then it's going to do two things. One is notify the fire department that there's something going on and they need to come. But the other important thing is it's letting everyone else in that building know that they need to take action and respond through visuals, through audibles. No one else really does that. And right, so a lot of the different kind of panic solutions and things like that where teachers call for help or let everyone, they don't let the rest of school know. So when you look at the Parklands and some of the other events, what you're continuously going to hear is there was a communication breakdown that even if police knew to get there, no one in the building knew to get behind a locked door, to get to safety. So that is really what we kind of changed our focus to say, not only do we need to get help there faster, we need to let everyone in that building know that they have to get themselves to safety. So we want to empower every staff member to be able to let everyone else on campus know to get to help. So what we did is we came out with a visual strobe. And that visual strobe, again, think of it like the fire system, is installed in every classroom. It's down hallways. It's in common areas, above exterior doors. And what that visual strobe does is it says if there is a campus-wide event that everyone needs to take action, we're going to start flashing a certain color. Maybe it's red. And that allows people to know that even if something else is going on, even if they can't hear an audible or they can't do this, I see a visual way to notify me that I need to get behind a locked door, I need to get to a safe corner, I need to stay in the bathroom instead of running back into the hallway because there's some danger going on in that campus. So that was really the big game changer. But then there's also this evolution of how do we do it in a way that is, again, adoptable, that is cost effective for schools, because running wires everywhere around a school, I know there's a lot of technical savvy people in this committee, that can be a barrier to a lot of people to getting something like this that they need. So over the years, we've created different evolutions. It went from original part I was part of was wired to now a wireless system, but then a cost-effective wireless system that has redundancy built in. So we have about now the third version of hardware as we've gone through this that I'll explain a little bit more. And then lastly, besides that push-button help comes, people start saying, how do we give more information to those responders? And you might have heard of different mapping technologies, mapping initiatives to get schools and maps. I believe there's something that's been through this state in the past. We take a little different approach to that, which I'll go into a little bit more, is not only do we want schools to create digital maps and show where their AEDs are and show where their Stop the Bleed kits are. That's important. But it can't just be a digital file that's sitting in an office or on a cloud server somewhere. This needs to be information that is at the fingertips of the people that are responding. And it's not a 911 dispatcher that's responding, right? It's the nurse. It's the assistant principal that's running down a hall to assist someone that's having a cardiac event. So what we do is we put that information of where is an AED, where is a Stop the Bleed kit at the fingertips of the people that are receiving that alert and responding. So kind of the few differences we look at is, number one, we want everyone to be wearing something, and it's got to be discreet. We feel it's important that this is a day-to-day tool, right? We don't want the return on investment to be an event that we hope never happens, right? It doesn't make sense. And not only that, if it's only something that's going to be used for an event you never hope happens, it never will be used because it's not going to be top of mind when it does happen. So what we really focus is how can this technology not just be for that worst case event? How can this technology change the day-to-day instructional day, right? How can this bring back instructional time? How can this de-escalate events so kids can stay in class instead of behavior issues and parents having to come pick them up? So this is really the day-to-day. 99% of the use of our system is what we call a staff alert, okay? And this is a behavior. This is a medical issue. This is a fight breaks out. And that allows any staff member, if they see that incident, to just click their badge 3 times. That badge is going to vibrate, and it's going to let that user know I did what I needed to do and help is on its way. So 99% of the use of that, this works anywhere on campus. So you could be in a classroom, you could be in a hallway, you could be in the cafeteria, you could be outside in a parking lot. You could be in the practice field that's kind of the block away down the street. It doesn't matter. We don't rely on the Wi-Fi of what school has. We know schools have different technologies. Sometimes even in a district, different schools within a district have different technologies. We don't want to rely on that. We don't want to rely on what's a cellular, right? We've all been in buildings, probably this one in a way, that certain technologies, it's hard to get a signal sometimes. So we create our own network of technologies to say we want that to not be a barrier. Push button help comes is important, and then we have the redundancy in it. So what happens when they click it 3 times? There's designated responders at every site that are going to get an alert, and they're going to get it on a phone and their computer that someone needs help and where they are located. And this is where that digital mapping now comes into play. We're putting at the fingertips of that person that receives the alert, think of a principal, assistant principal, right, a nurse. They're going to receive this alert, and they're going to be able to respond, and then as you might see, it's a little small, they're going to know where those assets are. So if it is a cardiac event, and we've had dozens now over the last few years, they're going to know where is that asset, where is that AED, because in a panic, the simple things aren't that simple, right? So that is the 99%. And then the next thing is, this is the insurance policy, right? The return on investment is the day-to-day, how it helps instructional, how it supports staff. It's kind of interesting because when we started development of this, it really was kind of a lockdown, right? It was for that worst case scenario. And it's really been our users that said the value again is this changes. I feel supported. I can get help when I need it, right? We probably all know friends, or we have been teachers or people in areas where it's not sometimes comfortable walking out at night, right? And how do you do it? You're not going to call 911 because you're not feeling safe. But this gives you a way. If someone's getting a little too close, if you feel maybe you're getting assaulted, this is a discreet way to call for help without it being the extreme 911 call that has its own time limits and barriers to get a response. So now the lockdown, what we say is if you see someone with a gun, right, whatever that active shooter is, you just keep clicking this badge. And you keep clicking this badge until a full lockdown event starts happening. And what I mean by that is you can see on the screen here, we have visuals, right? This is where that visual strobe in every classroom down hallways is going to start flashing. And then there's going to be a connection to the intercom system. So there's an announcement that's pre-made. It's surprisingly that over 95% of schools right now to go into a lockdown require someone manual to get on an intercom system and make an announcement. So if that event starts in an office, who's going to make that announcement? Right? This is now an automated way that if anyone on campus, we've empowered anyone, sees someone with a gun, they can immediately notify, put that school into a lockdown where the lights happen, the intercom automatically happens, and then every computer is taken over with a visual instruction on what everyone needs to do, right? Get behind a locked door, turn off the lights, get in a hard corner. Again, trying to remind people in the most critical time of simple steps of what they need to do to protect themselves. And then lastly, this is where, Will mentioned Alyssa's Law. This is where we notify. We're going to notify the police department. We're going to notify the local agencies that there is something going on at that campus. So while the 99% staff alert stays really as a school-contained incident, now we need to notify others. We need to notify that police that they need to come there. And then now the data they get is not just this school's in a lockdown. You have several large high schools around this state. The difference between responding to the front door and responding to the back hallway could mean minutes in a response. So this information now is that there is a dot on that map showing exactly where to go. In a real severe incident, there will be several dots, right? We know that from past experiences that there will be a lot of dots showing that location of where something's going on. So we talk about time. Why is that important? This was a study done in the past, right? This is kind of the average response. And this is where you start to look at some of the past events and realize this is a communication breakdown. Is the 5 to 8 minute response, that's what the solutions are focused on, is trying to get that response there faster. And it's important, right? How do you let people live until then? So what, again, we focus on is that first 5 minutes, that first 30 seconds to get behind a safe door. one of the surprising things as events have happened over the last few years, things I just took for granted, is gunfire. You know, unfortunately, if there was gunfire in this hallway outside, people don't think it's gunfire. They think something dropped, something, you know, some loud bang. So we got to also put ourselves in the mind of people just don't automatically think it's gunfire and respond. They need to be told that there is a danger happening and they need to respond. Because otherwise, the human brain, which I guess is a good thing for education, isn't thinking it's gunfire, right? They're trying to make sense and think it's anything else because they don't want to think of that worst case scenario. So this is now telling people, take immediate action. This is not anything but a danger. Good quick touch on the mapping. So again, I talked a little bit about it. There's a lot of initiatives in the states to make sure every school has a map. We think it's, again, critical to not just say, where is a map? Here's it is. Let's make it a digital file. I know a lot of it is sharing it with the police. That's important. But very little focus is saying, how do we share it with the people in that school? The principal, the assistant principal, the nurse, the SRO that might be responding to an incident. So that is really our focus and where we're different in the industry, is saying we want to put it at the fingertips of those people. And that's the AEDs, that's the room numbers, right? So that map, again, is given right to the people responding, but it's also given to police, right? It is given to those people in a campus-wide lockdown type incident. They will also get it. Even down to the pictures. We talk a lot about in emergency situations, there's gas shutoffs, right? There might be some type of gas leak in a school. Those are really hard to find sometimes, the water shutoffs, electric shutoffs. It might have been out on the street and then a bush was planted 20 years ago and that bush is now basically 2 trees and you don't know where that is. And there's one person in that district that knows where it is and they're gone this week and they're at a district maintenance level. So what we also do is those levels, you can add pictures to know where is that asset so we can make sure we get to it to save time and really, you know, not only just keep kids safe, but get back to learning, right? That is what the charter is to do. Obviously, as you see here, this is a response. This is what someone might see on their phone or their computer when they receive that alert, is they know who needs help. You'll see the red dot. And then what are the nearby things that they can take action with if they need to. On the technology side, I said this is a many versions through. And in the past, we had a version that had repeaters everywhere, right? Because to cover areas, we are in capitals, state capitals, right? We're in different areas. These are big spaces. Campuses, high schools, they're big spaces with a lot of challenges and each one's a little unique. So we used to have repeaters that were all over buildings and they had to connect. The problem with repeaters is they become points of failure, right? They can become unplugged. They can become other things. So last year we went to a longer range. It's called LoRa, stands for long range. They had a good naming convention there. So, and what that does is it's a much longer range. We're talking, you know, thousands of feet to if not miles if need be in open space. And what that allows is a alert to make sure it goes through. But then we also use Bluetooth for local positioning. Because one thing we want to make sure is staff, especially as you look at states and districts, we don't track staff. We have no clue where a staff member is until they push that button. So the other thing that's very important is it can work site to site, but it does not work off site, right? So if their staff members are at home and something were to happen, they push that button, nothing's going to work. They have to be inside the geofence of that Bluetooth network for the alert to work. However, the redundancy of the alert is going to be through that long range. So if I could kind of simplify it here, when I press that button, it's saying, where am I? Those strobe devices that I referenced in every classroom, down hallways, they're saying I'm room 202, I'm room 203. It knows where it is because there's a device in that room. We don't have to do the trilateration, the triangulation that's really hard to do when there's a lot of bodies moving. We know you're in that room because there's a device that's closest to you in strongest strength. So then that device, it says, okay, I know where I am. I'm in room 202. I'm sending that down to this gateway device that's in that school, and that is now turning that alert over to the cloud and alerting anyone that needs to happen, the police, or letting the principal know. So that is through that redundancy. There's always several gateways that you see the black device on the screen right now. That is usually 2 per school. Those devices are what receive the alert. So again, localized, it's Bluetooth for where are you located, The alert transmission is through that long range. It's a 915 megahertz signal, so a sub-gig for that long range. That is then what's going to send that alert through to make sure it gets through. We add extra redundancy, saying there should always be 2 gateways within range. But then we also say, what if the network goes down to that school? What if power goes out? Our host system is on power backup, battery backup, and it has a cellular failover. But we go a step further even beyond cellular failover, because certain companies, right? A Verizon might work great over here, but AT&T is better over there, and there's different challenges at every site. We actually have a multi-carrier SIM that can pick the best signal based upon that location and what's available in that area. So that is a failover only. We want to use the existing network, but again, that's a Ethernet hardwire connection. We do not rely on the Wi-Fi. What Wi-Fi they have, we could care less. And then lastly, as you look at these technologies, the reason we chose these is they coexist, right? There is thousands of Bluetooth devices that go inside even this building every day. So it doesn't upset the Wi-Fi networks or the other networks in place. Same with LoRa. There's a huge alliance. Large companies have invested in this to make sure there is compatibility with other solutions already in place and other technologies already in place. So that really, again, hardware, this is it. So there's no hardwiring all around except that gateway. That gateway is hardwired. Everything else is a wireless, quick install. People go, how fast can this be? Our largest district is 380 sites out in Las Vegas. And the install portion of that to go to 380 sites was 6 weeks. So it was a quick install. Most of our projects, right, are a week on site. We're in several counties, Meade County here in Kentucky. Usually it's only a few days to a week or two on site, depending on how many sites there are. So this is not a multi-year project, right? That is why a lot of people look at us as, if I want equity, if I want every one of our sites, every one of our staff members and students to be protected by the same system, this does not have to be something that's done over 5 or 10 years. This is something that they can say in 4 months, we can be protected and be all the same across every site. So that is a very quick install. Average schools installed in 1 night. And then lastly, how do we use the reunification, right? Some of the other things you might hear, visitor management. We had people go, hey, if we know where someone is when they push the button, right, can we use this to help our visitors? Can we check visitors in and know where they are, do the sex offender background checks, things like that? So we developed that full platform that starts to include some of those other features, but then do it in a way that no one else does. So some people go, hey, if we need to find a contractor, where have they been in our schools? Maybe there's an accusation. We can actually use that as a historical. This is completely different from staff, right? We do not track staff. However, we can use that same technology for visitors or vendors to say, where have they been, and get an audit trail where they've been to, again, for billing purposes or accusations, anything like that. That is the full solution. I'm going to turn it over for you for any questions.
Thank you. Very interesting. Committee, Senator Williams, you always have a question.
Yeah. So your low ray implementation. What's the maintenance facility? I know that we have low energy requirements. How, once you install it, how we have to replace batteries? What's hardwired? What's batteries? What's our maintenance?
Excellent question. So when we originally started this in our first implementations about 6 years ago, it was like a device hardware purchase. It was kind of, you get it, figure it out. And what districts came back to us and said is, hey, we've never planned for a solution like this. We didn't know a solution like this existed. We don't have the resources to take care of this. So they kind of forced us into saying, how can we do this that we just handle it all? So we switched over to a service model that says, we're going to handle it. Batteries, you don't have to replace them. We take care of that. It's a service now. And then what that forced us to do as a vendor, and I'm just going to be transparent with you, if it's us that's responsible for changing a battery, guess what? We're going to make sure it lasts a long time, because it costs us money to go on site and actually do that repair. So that's kind of some of these versions of how can we make this the most robust, redundant system so we don't have to come on site, because again, that's to our bottom line. So it is something we completely handle now for our users in our districts, that it is a turnkey solution that includes maintenance and batteries.
Okay. Representative All. And
Thank you,
Representative
Mr.
White.
Chairman. First, thank you guys for this presentation. I'm glad. I know you were here a couple weeks ago at the Annex, and I was not able to attend that meeting. Actually, I know a little bit about your solution, a little bit about your product. I actually have a constituent in my district who is originally from Paducah. She's a survivor of the 1997 Heath High School shooting down there. And she actually brought this technology and brought this idea of Alyssa's Law to me this summer. And I've been working this summer and fall on a draft piece of legislation in this space. Several other states have passed a version of Alyssa's Law: Texas, Florida, Tennessee, Missouri, New York, New Jersey. So it's really not a partisan issue. It's a nonpartisan issue, because at the end of the day, technology like this is going to save lives. It's going to save lives. And the only question comes down to is how we're going to fund it. And so I've shared with you all just now a draft version of my piece of the version of Alyssa's Law. We'd love to have your feedback, but I think it's something that we should do at the state level because the technology works. I believe, and I don't know if it was your technology or another vendor's, but the recent school shooting down in Georgia had very similar, if not your actual, was it your technology?
It was our technology.
So the school shooting in Georgia, they had this technology in place, and the response time was greatly reduced. And the local law enforcement community, when you saw their press conferences, they were very complimentary to what your ability to do saved lives and saved time because of the response time. And I believe that's our responsibility of a General Assembly, is to do everything reasonably within our power to save lives. And so I'm excited about this technology. I think this technology in general is exactly what we should be focused on. And I do think we ought to be vendor agnostic, because there's other technologies in this place, and leave it up to the local school districts to make the final decision on the technology that best fits their needs based on their budget capacity with their financial resources and skin in the game. But I would really, really welcome your all's feedback and anybody's feedback to make that bill better, and hopefully we can get it passed this upcoming session. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, Senator Wise.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to follow up with Representative. Thank you for the presentation. I hated I could not be at Meade County. I think there was a lot of legislators that were invited. My schedule could not accommodate me being there. But I've Campbellsville High School, I'm an alum, and that is in my Senate district, my hometown. I work well with the superintendent there, and I know it's doing a phenomenal job down there. My question kind of piggybacks off of Representative All in terms of the funding amount. Last session, the budget, both the House and Senate were very aggressive finally in really stepping up to the game for school safety. I know with legislation we put into place, especially with school resource officers, making sure that every campus that we've got someone there with a gun on campus to be able to provide safety concerns. Can you give us a cost? Is there what you're seeing in other school districts across the other states you're involved in? Is it permissive, as Representative All said, that it's local district decision, or are you seeing the state has stepped up to allow this to be mandated, but the state is covering the cost of this?
Yeah, I think most recently Utah passed a version of Alyssa's Law that mandates it in all schools and then funded it. And they mandate wearables versus any other, an app or a hardwire installed. They put in $100 million for a lot of school safety. Our piece of that, they are still working with their task force to do it. Ohio also, they should be going through their second hearing this week, and their finance introduced a similar version, and they fund it. It's about, I believe, about $25 million, which boils down to a state commitment of $8,000 roughly per campus. And that's what Utah is looking at. That back of the napkin math in Kentucky is about $12 million on an ongoing basis. But that includes funding for mapping with our system, right? So you're getting multiple kind of multiple solutions, if you will, that check multiple policy boxes or standard requirements, whether it's digital mapping, asset location. We track the asset health of AEDs, or we don't track it. We allow facilities to update kind of the health of all that, whether it's fire extinguishers, AEDs, as states require. More and more states require AEDs in schools. That's an asset add-in too. And so, I mean, $12 million is what we kind of started with. Now that's all in on the state. So, as a former, let's say, regulator, bureaucrat at Texas's Department of Education, I think schools should have skin in the game long term. But we look to the legislature as well as the DOE to kind of, what are those standards? In Texas, following Uvalde, we passed a host of them. But the 4 basic standards that you have to comply with by the end of this school year, or the commissioner can, he may, not shall, install a conservator. It's make sure all your doors lock. The first ground exterior, or I should say the ground level exterior windows have been made, not bulletproof, but shatter resistant with film. There's a perimeter requirement, kind of single points of entry, and then it's what we call SPAT in Texas, which it's panic alert technology. Okay. So those were the 4 basic standards. Texas put almost $2 billion worth of new money into school safety, and then has some more as we go back into session next in the coming spring. Kind of an ongoing student safety allotment. So you treat it more like an entitlement on an ongoing basis after you address a lot of what are the, in Texas after Uvalde, we had to figure out how many doors locked and how many door locks were broken. There's 9,000 public school campuses in Texas. That's a lot of doors. Yeah. And so, but you don't need to replace those every year, right? And so what is the upfront cost versus the ongoing? And then, kind of back it out to allow districts to have a predictable funding model, right? They know what that entitlement is, and they know what the standards are, and they have a responsibility to comply.
Good. Thank you for the work you are doing for protecting students, staff, and like you said, it's not just for schools, it's for colleges, it's for government buildings, it's for a lot of different aspects. So I really, really appreciate what you are doing with this. And I really like the interoperability. Because I know a lot of times you mentioned the cell phone use, and just I know that's been a major problem of just rescue squad, police officers, fire, not sometimes being on the same interoperability. So it's good to see that your product is allowed to do that.
Absolutely. No, I'm a dad. I've got 2 boys in 1st and 2nd grade, and really in these situations, you want those teachers focused on the kids. So trying to fumble around with a phone or anything else it's delaying those kids getting sheltered in place.
Thank you.
And one thing I just want to add there too is when you look at some of the funding as this has come out in other states, is what sometimes the intent. What happens, as you guys work on something, the intent. I talked about some of the lessons learned we've had with how do you visually notify. Some of that gets lost. Right, and I know when there's funding put in place is making sure the standards are at a high enough level, because unfortunately we see in a lot of districts in areas they check the box to the lowest thing, right? Hey, what qualifies, what settles that mandate, and what's the lowest price? And that just shouldn't happen with kids, right? There shouldn't be an unequal area of protection across the state if there is state funding that's paying for it. So one of the things I always say too is, what is that level you want? Do you want visual notifications to happen to everyone, right? Some of the things that have been proven to show that it makes a difference.
Okay. Great use of technology. Great questions from the committee. Looks like we don't have any more right now. I really appreciate y'all being here today, and hope we can get somewhere with this in the coming years. And with that, the only item left on our agenda is when our next meeting is. I think previous discussion, we're going for January. January, okay.
We just don't have a date set.
Okay, so January meeting, TBD. And with that, I will take a motion for adjournment. So moved. Okay. All in favor, aye. We are adjourned. Thank you very much.